Now we go on to the actual kind of like order of battle and tactics. And this is what I've dubbed the raid section. I never had a name for it until now. Basically, the way that we want to operate is utilizing all the equipment that I've listed out, all the weapons. That's what we're going to have stocked in our stockpiles. What we want to do is try to get a group of somewhere between 2 to 5 vehicles together, and this force that we've assembled here can basically fulfill either the supply line raiding or the forward reconnaissance. All right. The whole point behind it is to be fast and mobile, and it just has enough firepower that if we can apply it to the enemy's weak points, we'll be able to deal a lot of damage. All right. We cannot go head to head with anybody really. We can't go into the front line, get thrown into the slugfest of a trench battle or a heavy tank destroyer duel and expect to do much. That's just not how that this regiment is going to operate, and it's not how all the equipment that I've listed can be effectively used. All right. So let me go a little bit more in depth. The whole point behind the raid section, it starts with the Jeep. The Jeep, as I said, is the reconnaissance element and the logistics element, and it can fulfill both. One Jeep can fulfill both for a normal raid section here. What I've got listed out here is one type of force composition that I've actually used before, and it was a very successful raid. We used the Odyssey here as forward reconnaissance and logistics, the Hatchet and the Percusio as fire support. The Hatchet being the main fire support role, the Percusio here was to provide anti-infantry and support the Hatchet here, because what people don't know is that the ATR, the 20mm ATR, is very effective against infantry. It's a one-hit, basically. The Percusio runs into some problems in the sense that it's kind of inaccurate, whereas if you brought a half-track with the 20mm, the half-track's much more accurate. But it does the job, right? It can carry plenty of ammo and can compensate for that. And yeah, this force right here that I've listed out, that's something that I've actually done and actually does work. The largest raid section that I've ever led was 2 Odysseys and 2 Percusios, so 4 vehicle unit. And the reason why you want to keep it from 2 to 5, you start with 2 because if you're trying to operate just a single vehicle like this, you're not going to be able to get far, especially with the way that we want to play. All right, the way that this regiment wants to operate is sort of like Muhammad Ali's. You gotta float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. All right, that's why everything starts with the Jeep. Reconnaissance is the bread and butter of everything that we're gonna do. You go out and find and look and assess the situation. Okay, you have to use your brains a little bit, and you're gonna have to take just a little bit more time and effort to operate the weapons that we are trying to use in the way that we're trying to use them. You can't just keep on going head on against the enemy. It's not going to work out, especially with the equipment that we're operating here. You start with the Jeep, you go out, you find the enemy, you assess where they're weak, where they're strong, and then you bring in the fire support into the weak point, hit them, and then once you've hit, you must remember not to get greedy, all right? You cannot stay in a prolonged firefight with the kind of equipment that we're running, all right? The firefight shouldn't last more than 5 minutes. If it lasts more than 5 minutes, we have done something terribly wrong, okay? After 5 minutes, we just have to bail. We have to just leave the engagement zone, run as far away as we possibly can in a different direction, and then reset ourselves to attack a different point where the enemy is not expecting us. We just go in, hit, get out. It's all hit and run tactics for the most part in supply line raiding. In forward reconnaissance, that's also it's a little bit more complex than that, and I'll get to it later on. But same principles apply, right? Just pure maneuver for the most part. Get around to the sides. The enemy will try to chase us, but we're in theory much faster than he is. So he will probably get tired and try and chase us. And once he's lost interest and he's no longer aware or he's lost interest, then we can hit him when he's not looking. So it starts with 2 because you don't want to operate any one vehicle by itself. Combined arms is the name of the game here for the most part. And you don't want to go more than 5 because if you go more than 5 vehicles, it becomes such a large unit that it's going to be very, very hard to coordinate. even if you try to run like the 4-unit comp that I talked about here, 2 Odysseys and 2 Percutios, that was also a very difficult unit to maneuver. Partly because it was, as I said in the recruitment ad, this is all pretty much kind of experimental. It isn't so much experimental now as it was back then because I've had a lot of experience and I have actually tried running a raid section like this many times. It can work. It just takes a lot of practice for the most part on the guys that want to operate in the vehicles and the unit that we're trying to operate here for the most part. But yeah, you don't want to go more than 5. That's definitely for sure. And there is no fixed force composition here, right? No one is restricted into using just like these 3 in this kind of a way. You always start with the Jeep because that's the Recon vehicle and the larger vehicle. And after that, the force composition is up to whoever is commanding the raid section for the most part, what it is that he's trying to accomplish, where he's trying to fight. If you're fighting in a more like enclosed environment where there's not a lot of room to maneuver, uh, you might be able to get away with a tankette force comp, like 2 tankettes. You might be able to get away with that. If you're fighting in a more open environment, or if you intend to take the supply line raids deeper into enemy lines, then armored cars might be the better way to go. You might want to bring an extra Jeep for extra largy. So long as you keep it within 2 to 5, it's up to you. You have full creativity to mix and match what it is you want to use. Try to figure out what works and what doesn't work for you, and what works and what doesn't work in certain situations and certain battlefields. So yeah, that's the raid section idea right here. So just to go back, just double back a little bit into the mission types, how we're going to apply all these weapons and equipment and the order of battle as I've described, and how they're going to work into the 2 mission types, the supply line raiding and the forward reconnaissance mission. So just to recap, supply line raiding is cutting logic, right? It's partisan work, but with vehicles for the most part. And why we want to do this, these are the pros right here. If you're trying to do it with just pure infantry, like normal people, basically the way that normal people do for the new players here who don't know how it works, you just equip yourself with recon uniform so that enemy map intel can't pick you up so easily. And usually you bring in like a light machine gun of some kind so that you can knock out trucks. You walk all the way behind enemy lines to their supply routes and hide in a bush and wait for the trucks to come by. And if you are lucky and it's a very busy road, you might be able to get quite a few trucks by ambushing them with your machine gun from the bush. Problem there is that the enemy will then QRF you, QRF meaning quick reaction force, and this usually means it's a standby unit, usually armored unit, that's waiting for you to come out to attack the largest lines. And once they identify where you are, they come out for you, chase you, run you down, and that's the end. So with the force composition and doctrinal idea of the recon support company, with bringing vehicles, you can bring a lot of firepower to bear. So you can knock out more than just logistics. And I've been in a situation, it was a spontaneous situation where it just so happens to be the exact amount of vehicles and the type of vehicles as I've explained before. I believe in that battle that I took part with, it was 1 hatchet and 2 half-tracks. We got that behind enemy lines into their 1 logistics route in the front line that we were fighting in that specific hex. They only had this 1 logi line, and we got the hatchet and 2 half-tracks there, and we were not only able to knock out their logistics, but we also knocked out more armor behind that line, cutting that route, than our boys did at the frontline battle that was happening in the hex, basically. We managed to do that because you have to understand that when front lines take losses, people aren't really in the mood to run whole convoys anymore. Usually, when the operation starts, regiments will operate in a column when they're deploying to the front line. But as they're taking the casualties, nobody has the time or patience to run another convoy from the back lines to the front. So they always come single in ones or twos, basically. And if you can get the mismatch in numbers, at that point, you can take out armor. And we did. We took out like 2, 3 tanks, a couple of half tracks in that one battle. Uh, we didn't take them all out at once, but as I said, they come just one at a time. You get the mismatch of a 3-on-1 behind enemy lines. They got no support. Boom, they're done. You can get a lot more work done with trying to do raiding with vehicles. So yeah, you bring more firepower to bear. You can travel further and faster. So with the vehicles that are listed out here, quite a few of them, with the exception of the tank kit, they can get in and out of situations pretty fast. They can maneuver pretty decently. That's important because if you're going around raiding, one of the best ways to deal with QRF is to just not be there, just run away. Once you've hit a target, you just get out, go somewhere else, hit another target somewhere else. Operating longer because we have the logistics capability, we have the ability to bring more fuel, more BMATs. We can repair ourselves behind enemy lines and refuel ourselves behind enemy lines. That's one extra pro. And yeah, as I've said here, you can defend yourself against QRF. It's the same concept with what I've talked about before in actually taking out enemy armor as they're going to the front line. If you're facing up against a inexperienced QRF crew or a normal QRF crew, they usually don't bring that much to deal with you. Usually they send like 1 or 2 tanks, which means that in theory, if you're running a raid section from 3 to 5 vehicles, you actually have the mismatch. You have more numbers than they do when they come after you. Uh, yeah, that's something you can do with this. So the cons. So this is where things sort of fall apart, and it's probably why not a lot of people have tried doing what I'm proposing here that we're trying to do. Uh, Once again, the reason why you have the limit of 5 vehicles is that if you're trying to operate a large number of units, it becomes very hard to coordinate, very hard to keep cohesion, and the whole point behind the raid section is to be fast and mobile. If you have too many units, you can't be fast, you can't be mobile. It's just the way it works. Um, One thing to alleviate this is a lot of practice. If the guys operating our vehicles are all very experienced and they all understand the plan, we should, in theory, be able to get around quite a lot of the problems. Yeah, so the second point here is also the same, lack of coordination. It's an experience issue. I'm not going to say skill issue because, I mean, everybody sucks at the beginning. You just have to take the time to play, get experience, and of course, you need to take the extra step to look back and analyze what went right, what went wrong, and what we need to do in the future to compensate. I've done this many times now in learning. Uh, Everything that I've described here, I have had experience in doing. So this is not theoretical for the most part. Everything here, I have had in-game experience, and I've done it quite a lot of times now. The only thing that I have not done is try to operate the raid section on a uh, normal basis, really, on a regular basis. Sorry. I haven't been able to do that, partly because haven't been able to get enough manpower to get on with the program and to operate this way. As I've said, it's a very specialized regimen and it's a very specialized way of playing the game. Uh, you need experienced people or people that are willing to get the experience and to learn in order for this to work properly. But it is possible; it can be done.